We'll be taking you through stories making headlines across the country this morning. We'll also be taking a look at the newspapers, what is being headlined. So feel free to talk to us across our feedback lines. Our SMS line is open. We're also live. The hashtag is Morning Live. Let's get this show started now. Unfortunately, not good news coming off from the coastal city of Mombasa, where the desperate search for 3 missing people who drowned in the Indian Ocean entered its 3rd day on Sunday, with a multi-agency team intensifying efforts to retrieve the bodies of those presumed dead.
The trio went missing on Friday afternoon after the boat capsized during the 2nd edition of the East African Ocean Festival.
Now, there were among other 19 participants who were rescued from the incident.
Several agencies, including the Kenya Coast Guard Service, the County Fire and Disaster Management Unit, and other security teams are taking part in the ongoing rescue operation.
Families of the missing victims have urged the government to expedite recovery efforts and ensure accountability and proper investigations into exactly what transpired.
And meanwhile, organizers have suspended the festival to allow the recovery operation to continue, and exercise is expected to take several more days.
Mwenyali anda event ako wapi? Kalebo Tieno apate haki yake. Na apolewe kwa maji. Ni mtoto huyu mmoja. Sijafanikiwa kuzaa mwingine. Ndio mvulana, ndio msichana.
Tutapata msaada wao wenye kuwatafuta waongezeke. Bahari ni kubwa. Hii bahari si ndogo. Bahari ni kubwa. Wapatikane jamani. Mtoto wangu ameacha bibi. Ni mjamzito. Anajifungua next week. Nimetumia jasho yangu ili kuja kufia kwa maji. Mfanye haki yake. Apate haki yake mtoto wangu. Tomili apate haki yake.
Kama support watu wengine kuanza kushika zile ardhi zao ambayo walipata title deed kupiga boma.
Ni nyambamba kweli, hata nikiingia katikati siwezi ingia, naogopa.
La milima ya Shela ndio leo
maji mengi ya pesa, mtoto wangu anatafuta ajira. Maana ajira zake alikuwa shakaziwa. Sasa akaona tu sasa mama simwambii, wacha niende nitafute ajira nyingine yenye hajawahi fanya kwa maisha yake. Pale Bangalatu na bahari na hajaitembea, hajaiogelea.
Ningeomba management ya hii hoteli watupatie yule mwenye alikuwa amesimamia hiyo event yenye ilikuwa inaendelea hapo juu, kwa sababu wamechukua vijana wadogo ambaye hawajui bahari.
I mean, what a tragic story from Mombasa, with the Barin Festival, and there was, the boat racing, and the incident was captured, live on cameras. Mm-hmm. But from where I sit, it raises a lot of questions about this. What was the safety procedure around teams that would have gone to the water to race? Because if you look at some of the parents and just what they are saying, their children don't know how to swim, but somehow they were on this boat with no lifeguard vests. I mean, this is not just it, especially if you're having such a festival on water. Not everybody knows how to swim. There should have been a safety procedure and just a keen look into some of these people who are getting on this boat. And
very sure, because there is a time I was in Mombasa and I decided to go to the farthest point, actually I can say the deepest part of the sea. And when you're in that deep part, actually you see darkness, and it's during the day. And now you may think of getting back to the shore. It's very far from where you are. And now I was actually we were 33 in the boat. And you can think of the winds that blow over the seas. And now you find that there are no strict measures that are put in place to secure or even to save people when such tragedies take place. So I think we've got the lifesavers, we've got the life jackets, but I think like these parents who are complaining that their children does not know how to swim. I saw an example of a small school just around Nairobi where it's like they are dipping all children into one small or in one big pond where they are swimming, and they don't know how to swim. So I think if it's about training these people to swim fast, I think you have to use a smaller pond to make sure that they are a bit trained so that you can take them to deep waters like the ocean, the seas. So I think it is carelessness of the highest order. Absolutely. If we can allow, just being on water is very scary. It is. And so frightening. Ocean, So you just go there and you think of, nasikia kuna majini kwa maji. You think of this. So anytime you can find yourself drifting, and that becomes a story or an history. So
yeah,
I think
I absolutely agree with you. Yeah. And if you look at what even the organizers have said, it's sort of like distancing themselves away from taking accountability, and yet they should have taken the accountability that anybody getting on a boat, whether you know how to swim or not, and it's a boat racing, you should have prepared for that. And so it's quite tragic, and we hope that they will get the body of, I believe, 2 more of those that were missing. Our condolences to the family of the ones that have already been confirmed.
Yeah, and for the same, I think a measure should be taken into place from this time and ahead.
All right. Elsewhere, President William Ruto has expressed confidence that Kenya will achieve first world status by the year 2055, attributing this optimism to the strategic decisions his administration has been making to steer the country's transformation.
And speaking during a church service at AIC Ziwani in Nairobi, the president emphasized that his continued outreach to leaders across the political divide is aimed at fostering national unity and laying a strong foundation for rapid growth and sustainable development.
Nimezungumza na viongozi wengi katika taifa letu la Kenya. Nimeongea na wabunge almost 80% of parliament, one-on-one, to explain to them how we are going to move this country from a third world country to a first world country. I have had a conversation with our former Prime Minister Raila Odinga on how we are going to move this country from a third world country to a first world country. I have engaged my brother, former President Uhuru Kenyatta, on how we are going to move this country from a third world country to a first world country. I have engaged many, including Gideon Moi recently, on how we are going to move this country from a third world country to a first world country. And I will continue to engage all the leaders until we come together so that we can take this country to be a first world country in our lifetime. Na mimi naomba wa Kenya, najua mambo yakisemwa kama vile nimesema, tuko na Thomas wengi, tuko na manabii wengi wa uongo. Wakati tulisema tutajenga manyumba, walisema haiwezekani. Wakati tulisema tutakuwa universal health coverage, walisema haiwezekani. Wakati tulisema ya kwamba tutaajiri walimu zaidi na kubadilisha mfumo wetu wa elimu, walisema haiwezekani. Wakati tulisema transform kilimo, tuwe na chakula ya kutosha, hii nchi wache kuagiza chakula kutoka nje, walisema haiwezekani. Mimi, I want to tell you, the people of Kenya, we have what it takes. We have the ideas, we have the knowledge, we have the plan, we have the people, and we have the resources to move this country from a third world country to a first world country in our lifetime by 20.
And on other stories, United Opposition leader Rigathi Gachagua, Kalonzo Musyoka and Martha Karua today continued their tour of the Mount Kenya region.
Led by former Deputy President and DCP party leader Rigathi Gachagua, the leaders attended a church service at the Ambassador Ministry of Christ in Wamumu Ward, Mwea, Kirinyaga County, where they urged Kenyans to rally behind their efforts to unseat President William Ruto in the 2027 general elections, saying unity remains key to achieving political change.
Hii kazi nzuri ya nyumba ya Bwana iweze kukamilika. Si ndio? Na umehubiri vizuri sana. Sasa Bishop, mambo ya uoga, ukituambia tusinunue, ulikuwa unahubiria mabishop wenzako. Sisi hapo hatuko hapo. Sisi kama tungekuwa watu ya kununua uoga, Ruto angekuwa ametumaliza na angekuwa amemaliza nchi hii. Sisi, we are encouraged by your message that we should not buy fear, na hatutanunua uoga.
Now, the ongoing political efforts to woo Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka and other opposition figures into government continue to gain momentum, with leaders allied to the Kenya Kwanza administration now calling on opposition leaders to follow in the footsteps of KANU chairman Gideon Moi and join forces with President William Ruto, saying national unity will spur development.
Speaking during a women's fundraising event in Mochongoi, Baringo Area MP Charles Kamuren and Baringo Women Rep Representative Florence Jamatia said Kenya's political landscape is entering a new phase of unity talks, which they believe could see President Ruto run unopposed in the 2027 elections.
Wale wengine wako nje wamalwa na wale wengine wote, Kenya hii saa hii tunataka maendeleo na raia wanataka maendeleo. Hata na nyinyi mnakaribishwa mkuje na chama zenu, tuungane pamoja na Kenya Kwanza, Kenya isonge mbele.
Na kwa miaka zaidi ya 20 Gideon Moi pamoja na William Ruto hawajawahi onana macho kwa macho, na hawa ni vijana ya mzee mmoja anaitwa mzee Moi. Sisi kama jamii ya Kalenjin tunasema ni mwanzo mpya kwa viongozi wa.
Allies of President William Ruto from the Ukambani region have taken aim at Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka, accusing the opposition of using him as a political pawn ahead of the 2027 general elections.
Speaking in Malindi during the launch of the Akamba Kilifi Association, Mwala MP Vincent Kawaya claimed that former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and other opposition leaders are only using Kalonzo to advance their own political interests.
Kawaya further said the opposition is well aware that President Ruto remains too strong to be defeated in the 2027 polls.
Mwache kudanganya Kalonzo, wacheni kabisa, mkome kwamba what you are doing will only serve to make Wiper leader an opposition leader, either a deputy opposition leader or whatever, but not a president. Hata nyinyi wenyewe mnajua kwamba you also don't believe kwamba anaweza kuwa.
Anganye na watu wa siasa ambao wanapiga kila kitu kizuri kinafanywa na rais, kazi yao ni kupinga. Anything good wanasema ni mbaya.
Sisi tumshukuru Rais Daktari Ruto, muungano wake na baba Raila Amolo Odinga umeleta amani, kitu cha kwanza Kenya.
Kiaru Member of Parliament Ndindi Nyoro has raised concerns over the recently launched National Youth Opportunity Nyota program, warning that borrowing to fund such initiatives is worsening Kenya's economic situation.
Speaking at the 25th anniversary celebrations of the Christian Foundation Fellowship, the former Budget Committee Chair cautioned that Kenya's public debt has risen by over 1 trillion shillings in just 8 months, with much of the borrowed funds going to projects that yield little tangible benefit.
The Nyota program is aimed at supporting 100,000 young people across the country with startup capital, training and mentorship, a move the government says is designed to empower youth and boost entrepreneurship.
Program inaitwa Nyota, National Youth Opportunity. National Youth Opportunity towards Advancement. Ile deni nimetaja, pesa haitoki hapo. Hiyo pesa ya Nyota ni pesa ya World Bank. Ni pesa ya Banki Kuu ya Dunia. Na kwa hivyo mimi ningeomba hata hii pesa Kenya inakopa mingi. Kama World Bank wanatupea bilioni 5. Si serikali ya Kenya ikeweka bilioni 5, wale youth wanapewa waongezeke maradufu, ama badala ya kupewa 50,000 wapewe hata 100,000 waanze biashara mzuri.
All right, so we want to get into the newspapers to just understand the headlines on the Daily Nation and the Standard. But before we get into that, let's pick on this Nyota program because, you know, the head of state is really brilliant in coming up with financial structures that seek to quote-unquote empower. We had the Hustler Fund, we had the Women Enterprise Fund, now we had the Women Economic Empowerment Programs, now we have Nyota, which is specifically targeting the youth, and they're targeting to cover at least 100,000 Kenyans. Now what the Budget and Appropriations Chair, Ndindi Nyoro, is basically saying, this is not the way to empower. You don't borrow a debt to empower these people, because number one, this is not money that is going to come back guaranteed. This is sort of, you know, how they say, you're gifting somebody, you don't expect them to gift it back in return. And so, you know, he's got a point. The empowerment programs are brilliant, but it needs to be structured and channeled in such a way that if you're going to give somebody money which they're supposed to return, you'll actually get a return on investment, because you're investing in somebody or on something. So ROI, return on investment. Now with the Hustler Fund, for example, we had billions of money which have gone unaccounted for because people borrowed. Brilliant idea. People borrowed 5,000 Kenyan shillings, and they were set to return the money, but you know, they didn't return it. And so the CS for MSMEs, former Governor Oparanya, is asked, okay, so what do we do about this money? And he says, you know, this is money that now we need to find a different way on how we can get this money back. I mean, it doesn't work that way. So we also had the Women Empowerment Programs, which the Deputy President Kithure Kindiki has been at the forefront in championing, and now the Nyota program. What surprised me was that last week, I believe after it was launched on Monday, principal secretaries, all principal secretaries went back to their native counties. So if you're, for instance, a PS from the Kisii region, you're sent to Kisii to, you know, oversee this Nyota program. If you're from Mombasa, you're sent to Mombasa, subsequently across all 47 counties.
Okay, so interesting.
Interesting, I mean.
And it's interesting because in there, we've got, I think, the 4 programs from the Hustler Fund. And last time I think we mentioned of the same. You want to empower me and you give me 500 shillings actually. That's one not. Sijakula, sijafanya nini, and you just empower me to do business. Now I want us to do a small calculations now. For example, which is the smallest business that I can start with capital of 500 shillings? And that's maybe selling
granuts, sweets.
And number one, I have to eat, because I may try to starve myself or even avoid or even take one meal in a day because I lack. But now suppose I'm given the 500 shillings. Do you think I can starve myself when I see it here? In the name, yes, I'm supposed to revert it later with some small interest at the top of it. But how do I starve myself looking at the 500 here? Or again, do I buy sweets or do I start a business when I've not taken something for myself? So again, when it comes to the issue of Nyota, I think it's with the people who can or are eligible for the same. I think it is between 18 years to 29 years. And I think maybe a few in this category from 18 to 29. I think we need to have training before we get a loan for something. We need to have better training, a training that will, if I give you like 100,000, you are very sure what you want to do. You're trained on the same. But now, suppose I give you the 100,000, I'll see people are talking of iPhones here and there. And remember, these are very young people. And sometimes I may say maturity does not come by age. And when it comes to financial maturity, we need to have a lot of training. Now you give 100,000 to, because I'm of age and I qualify for this. And
for instance, just an 18-year-old,
imagine,
you give them 100K.
You're in college. I think that is your first year or your second year maybe, and you're given that amount of money. You don't even think of paying fees. And again, you can also pay fees and you fail to clear your job immediately after you're through with your work. So I think as Ndindi is talking of the issue of borrowing, I think he's advising because we have a big debt as a country.
We do,
and
over 11 trillion shillings.
And I saw somewhere, I think we're borrowing like 32 billion shillings, I think, is it every day? But to confirm, we'll confirm that. So even if we are not sure about the amount, as we confirm to you later, but look at the Nyota program. it's not our own money we are borrowing.
Yeah.
Then we are handing it over to people who don't know how to handle money, who have never been into business. They've got no experience business-wise. So then you hand it over to them. I think as a country, and when we talk of maybe the transitions that are coming, education issues, health issues, everywhere issues, infrastructure issues, then you're still borrowing to give. It's like you borrow to, ni kama babangu alikuwa niambia, ukichotelea maji kwa shimo ijai. So this is the same thing we are doing. We are borrowing to make sure that we uplift or even we empower people, we empower our citizens. At the end of the day, this money is going into waste. Yeah,
I mean, there's no problem with empowering an individual, absolutely no problem with empowering an individual. It's just a question of, number one, where are we getting this money to empower them? Is it from, you know, return profits within government operations? Is it a particular fund that is budgeted for? Because in the 2025-2026 budget, there was no allocation on Nyota. Absolutely no allocation. It was not even known. You see, so it's also a question of this money. Okay, it wasn't budgeted for. So how are we funding or financing this particular project? And that's the point of debts, you know. We are going to World Bank, taking some chunk of money. We're investing and empowering these young people. So how do we pay it back? So those are just key questions that ought to be handled and to be answered by the president and his team, who I believe will definitely have an answer for that. So we'd love to hear from you about your thoughts on this Nyota program. And if you've applied, you know, do tell us. How the process. I think I tried. You did? Because as you give information to people, you have also to know how things work. And interesting. There's something you try to say, where we'll get money to repay. I think we still borrow again to repay. I mean, that's our procedure. And that's not a good, it's not a good cycle to be in, because now we are trapped. We're definitely trapped. So, I mean, interesting. So do talk to us. Tell us your views on this Nyota program, and just, you know, what do you see this as the future? Is it going to last? Will it be like Hustler Fund? Came in really strong, and then a few years down the line, it has, you know, sort of lost its I'd say popularity. Most people really don't talk about it. And so you do tell us what your thoughts are. Now, let's begin with the Daily Nation this morning. From hustlers to dynasties. That's the headline on the Daily Nation. From hustlers to dynasties. Now, the president says he will woo more opposition figures. Ruto says he's had conversations with Raila Odinga. He says he's had conversations with Uhuru Kenyatta and Gideon Moi. And he says he will continue to engage all the leaders so that he transforms this country into a first world country, because it is possible. Now, Ruto swept to power on a campaign anchored on attacking prominent political families he blamed for the suffering of a majority Kenyans. But in the quest to craft a winning re-election strategy, the same Ruto is getting the same backing of the so-called dynasties. So Ruto changes tune. Now, just a bit of history. 2022 elections really ran on a mantra of the hustlers versus the dynasties. As Ruto calls himself, the son of a what? Of a chicken? of a chicken farmer, right? And so he came into the fore, really trying to turn this into anybody can be the president. It doesn't matter what sort of backing you have. And this was obviously a direct contrast to Raila Odinga, because of the Odingas and the history of having Raila Odinga's father is the first prime minister of the country. Talk about Uhuru Kenyatta, whose father is the founding father of the nation. Talk about Gideon Moi, whose father was a president of the Republic of Kenya. Exactly. So this was a direct contrast, sort of like anybody can be president, to the other side, where these are people who've got connections and backgrounds and their names speak for it. And so that was largely what was one of the things that he was pushing for. And if you listen to his campaign all the time, that is what he will be talking about. But now, 3 years later, perhaps he's sat down and thought, oh, you actually need this, these people and their names to help you. And so he says he's engaged with Odinga. We obviously know he has, with the broad-based government. says he's engaged with Uhuru Kenyatta. We saw, I believe, within this first term, in the 3 years, we've had like 2 pictures of him and former President Uhuru Kenyatta, and now says he is engaged as well Gideon Moi, who we all saw the surprise meeting he had with, with the president at State House last week. Now, there's a thing about politicians and things that they say when they're campaigning, and then who they actually are when they get into office.
Yeah. And Cynthia, this top page of the Daily Nation, I think, carries everything. Yeah. And it's captioned, the start line is painted red. It's a game plan. Yeah. So if it's a plan, you have to sit down. You have to set a deal, you have to set a target of what you want to eat. And then after the game plan, President says he will woo more opposition's figures.
Yeah, so it means there's still more to go.
There's more to go. And you talked of history when it came to this story. And I can pick it from where, when William Ruto, he was the vice president, then when we voted, when elections took place, after he was announced as the victor of the 2022 elections. He said that we'll take like everyone from, he is ready to work with everyone. And maybe people will never know or never knew the disadvantage of working with everyone. And a case scenario, we saw people from Kisumu, they were celebrating, they were dancing here and there, saying that Ruto is the best president because he's working with everyone. And maybe people, and particularly voters, maybe don't know what are the implications, what are the disadvantages of a president working with opposition, or agreeing with the opposition and working in every bit with the opposition. And here we're seeing he is now ready to woo many opposition leaders into the same. And the opposition leaders that we have in strong standing, or they have a bigger strength. We have Kalonzo Musyoka, we have Martha Karua, Rigathi Gachagua, and we have Eugene Wamalwa. And if you use these people, because I think the opposition is trying to unleash their own presidential candidate. So this is to mean if, in a way, Ruto woos these people into his politics, this is to mean opposition is weakened, as it is now, because Raila was the leader of the opposition, but now is in government. So this is to mean if he does pick any figure from the opposition leaders, our team this time round, this is to mean expectations of, we are not deciding, but expectations of our president clinching the second term presidential seat will be very, very fortunate, and he'll be very lucky.
Yeah, and I'd love to go back to an NDC National Delegates Convention of the PLP Party, People's Liberation Party of Martha Karua. And I remember former AG Justin Muturi, when he woke up or stood up on the stand to speak, this is what he said: if you see any of us leaders, working with government or leaving this cause, just know he has betrayed the movement. And now I'm wondering, did he see this coming? Did he see the fact that Gideon Moi would change tune? Because initially Gideon Moi was to stand on an independent ticket for the Baringo senatorial seat, but had a change of heart, dropped out of the race. That's just more than change of heart, dropped out of the race in favor of the UDA candidate. And so I'm wondering, did the opposition perhaps see this coming? Because, he was a very stern opposition voice in the opposition. Yes, he sort of laid down for quite a bit. We've not heard of him a lot, but he was considered to be part of the opposition. But now, getting in an agreement of a sort with President William Ruto says a lot. At the same time, the head of state says he's still going to woo. Pardon me, I wonder why. Is it Monday?
It's on Monday.
It's Monday. So, however, the point is, the president says he plans on wooing more opposition figures. Question is, who is next?
We are waiting.
We wait.
Before we get out of
Yeah.
the top page,
Yeah.
I think we're finishing the review from Daily Nation. Maybe. Because there is from hustlers to dynasties.
Yeah.
But before we go to that, it's very unfortunate to see Kanu has been long-standing for a very long time. We just found it.
Yeah.
Tulikuwa tunaona tu kadogo kamesimama. Now, I want to look at wheelbarrow. Uda. This is Uda Simple. Just came some few years ago, and we're seeing this cock, Jogo ya Moi. We're seeing it inside wheelbarrow. This is to mean there were the stage talks between Ruto and Gideon Moi. And this is to mean the talks were agreed on, they sealed every deal, and they agreed on everything. That's why you can see Jogo is absorbed. This is to mean Kanu is absorbed in or within UDA. And this means that if Gideon Moi will be vying for any seat, he'll be pushed by the government to do the same, or by UDA to do the same. And on the other note is about from hustlers to dynasties. And President Ruto, when he was vying for the presidential seat, he was very focal on him being an hustler and clarifying to nation that people need hustlers. They need very low people. People will understand them. People will take care of their needs. But now we're seeing the statement there is from hustlers to dynasties. This to mean that maybe our president is now coming from the state of being a hustler to a dynasty, which maybe is said from Kenyatta to Moi and maybe to Kibaki. These were all dynasties, and they may not understand the dire needs of a Kenyan or a voter. So when it comes to a hustler, and I remember you saw Ruto moving to small hotels and kiosks, trying to fit in every
peak campaign time.
Yes, that is during campaign time. So I always keep on saying that if we try to vote, let's now be wise and very vigilant and know who is this we are putting next. Because if I promise to do this and I change, and when I'm campaigning, I'm very good. But when I'm given the position, I change so easily. So I think we need to be very keen when you I think it still should be remaining as from hustler to hustler, from hustler to a big hustler, so that we Kenyans can understand.
All right, so finally on the Daily Nation, school riots, pain, fury over hefty fees. Parents complain that unruly students have become a cash cow for schools that are imposing exorbitant fines on all learners to finance reconstruction after destruction of property during riots. They are also faulting the schools over the heavy financial burden imposed on them as school managers capitalize on strikes to make a killing. So this is on school riots. If there's an inferno that was human, I'd say caused by a human rather than natural causes, and just the pain now parents have to carry on their shoulders. You have parents who are Form 4 parents, parents to Form 4 candidates who will be sitting the exams in just a few days. And so if you tell them you have to pay this amount of fee for them to be able to sit for exams, you know, changes the whole aspect of it, as well as the fact that they need to be in school revising. So parents are now decrying the hefty fees charged after distractions in school. And I believe the reason why this was put, I saw, was the ministry was trying to curb the riots in schools, but it's a question of schools now taking advantage if a case happens that, you know, the exorbitant fees are charged in comparison to what the damage is. So there needs to be a liaison between the ministry, parents, and the school. And for the case of Little Boys, I believe, where parents were actually called to the school with their children and showed what the damage was. And so when a fee is put, you actually look at the damage and say, okay, there's a reason why there's this damage. But if you just say, this dormitory was burnt down, every parent should pay this particular amount of money, yet they have not been able to actually also see. And so there needs to be sort of a harmony between all these three people, so that students also understand the effects of their actions and just what happens when one student does something which affects the entire school fraternity. So we hope that they can get this sorted out as soon as they can.
Yes, I think that's very clear. It may not end on the same, but any story from the Daily Nation? Now, Kenya's board newspaper this morning, The Standard, we've been hearing of the story of Oyo and Jackie, and this is a story that has taken 2 weeks, I think, now, and they've been held incommunicado in Uganda for the 2 weeks, and Daily Nation is saying that release them, and for nearly 2 weeks, the families of activists Bob Jagi and Nicholas Oyo have endured a tormenting silence after their abduction in Uganda, with both Kenyan and Ugandan governments offering little clarity. Fears mounting that the two free Kenyan movement leaders are being held incommunicado by Uganda security forces. Their disappearance has sparked outrage among civil society groups who see it as part of a growing pattern of cross-border repression in East Africa. And saying that the biggest question that I just wanted to pose is, or even so we can analyze, is what is the relationship between our president to start with and the Ugandan president? And again, what is the relationship between our country, Kenya, and the Uganda?
Yeah, I mean, these two countries have had a very stable relationship, other than a few instances concerning perhaps business at the border, as well as the very famous Lake Victoria Migingo Island feud. Other than that, Kenya and Uganda have enjoyed quite a beautiful and stable relationship, I could say. We've seen President Yoweri Museveni, who also comes in and attends some of the national events in Kenya. So that really should explain what this relationship is and what it is and just how significant it is. Now, this is a case where if government wants to handle something, they will handle something. Because these are two Kenyan citizens. As much as they are activists, they are Kenyan citizens first before they become activists. And so if activists, Ugandan activists came and went missing in Kenya somehow, I mean, the Ugandan government will try to find out what ways are Ugandan citizens, what happened to them. And so, it takes me back to the issue where we had Ugandan, Kenyan, and some of the Tanzanian activists, the likes of Boniface Mwangi, who went to Tanzania, and they were also, captured for a couple of days, quote unquote, captured, for a couple of days, were released. Days later, they were traumatized. They had been tortured, according to what they said. And it is bringing up a very worrying culture within the East African community. That if you're having an activist from a different country coming into your country to support activists within your country, somehow they've done something wrong. And that's a very worrying culture, goes against any principles of the East African relations and the East African community diplomacy. And that should not be the new normal.
Actually, I ask that because, as you've said, before you become an activist or before you become anything in this country, number one, you have the right to be here because you are born here. And you're supposed to be protected. Your rights should be protected in whichever way. That's why we also have the penal codes. That's why we have courts. We have laws and regulations in this country. So it does not mean that if you mess in one way or the other, you're supposed to be killed. I think we don't have that death penalty immediately after you mess or after you go wrong in one way or the other. So I think as Kenya and as our President Ruto, because they've got a good relationship with President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda. I think they just need to have a very shallow talk. Maybe they have to know actually what happened, because we don't support our people from Kenya in the name of activism to go. Maybe it's good to support one another when it comes to the issue of activism, because activists, I think, fight for the rights of
humans,
the human beings, and maybe the weaker ones. And we quote the weaker ones. It means there's someone who, you may do something wrong to them, or even you may try to wrong them, and they have no strength to take you into the corridors of justice, and maybe they have to use the activists to stand in your place and even to take care of your case. So I think President, it's very easy for these two presidents to sit down and know what happened. Then after they analyze everything, they sit down and say, because of our relationship, and because we do transactions, we do business here and there, we do trade, what we are supposed to see, we sit down and agree, and maybe we give a small penalty or punishment for these two. which may be now, because these families are crying. I saw Oyo's mother yesterday. He's a very old mother, and I want you to imagine this son is held in Uganda, and again held in Comunicado. They can never communicate, they can never do, they don't communicate in any way. So it's very easy for someone to assume these people are now living now. They are not alive. And it sends a big trauma and kind of stress to the parents and to this country as well.
We really hope that some news will come in as soon as possible on just where they are. Are they alive? Are they dead? And we hope that the latter will not be the case. However, it also brings into perspective on why they actually went to Uganda, because they were, you know, in support of Bobi Wine. Bobi Wine is vying for presidency against President Yoweri Museveni, who, you know, is vying yet again, and told his people, which is quite humorous, that they should just give him opportunity because it will be like the last time.
I'm not coming here again.
And so, so that was the nature of the visit. And it takes me back to when Uganda was last having the elections, which I believe was 2021, and the violence that was also meted on Bobi Wine specifically as an opposition candidate. And he had to also come to Kenya for a few times where he was doing interviews in Kenya. And interestingly, he was free to talk about some of those issues facing Ugandans in Kenya compared to speaking about them in Uganda. And so we won't delve into the matters of the governance in Uganda. However, the situation as to how or why they went to Uganda now brings up the issue on just the rights of activists. And I'll still insist on this same case of what we saw in Tanzania. And what even the President Samia Suluhu Hassan had said, that they will not allow people from other countries to come here and try to assert the authority here. These are activists. What sort of authority can they assert? I mean, can they assert an authority higher than the president? They cannot. And so, you know, these three presidents really need to sit and just and talk and really have a sober conversation. Because the worst thing you can do is try to limit a movement. It fails because it's going to birth more movements, more activists within the East African region who will want to speak on some of this issue, because you're curtailing the right of an individual to free speech. You're curtailing the right of an individual to an association, because they are associating with Bobi Wine. So you're curtailing that freedom and that right. But we hope the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will work very fast to ensure that these two brothers are brought back home safe and sound.
Yes, and I think that reminds me of Besigye, Kizza Besigye, arrested in Kenya, and he was here for some good time. So these shows
there's a problem.
There's a problem. Relationship between Uganda, Tanzania also, and the three countries, I think it's deteriorating, it's becoming very low, and I think we benefit from one another. So
100%.
This is just two people, young, middle-aged, and Kizza Besigye, and the issue of Mwangi and Willie. Willie, the
former Chief Justice.
So I think there's more cases, and there are few cases. So it's very easy for us to handle as country. This is East Africa, and we need to have a very good relationship between or amongst ourselves. So I think I'm just reading small quotes here. Then I think unless we have another story, we'll be ending them. It is this is from Bobby Jaggi. It is very painful when you don't know where your child is. We really want to appeal to the government to help us bring the two home. I have not heard anything at all. There's nothing. We are in darkness. And this is Roslyn Oching, and this is Oyo's mother. And from Nicholas, this is Nicholas Oyo. It is impossible that the Kenyan government does not know where the two are. The passports were stamped as they crossed the border, so there's no way they don't know. And this is Professor Fred Ogola, governance and expert, and also is an activist. And the last one, the day we were to meet Bobi Wine, was when the two were taken. We had lunch and we were supposed to head and meet Bobi Wine within the same hour. As we were repairing our car, a van came with men, some in uniform, some not, and one woman. Some were armed. This is Kofi Atinda. They're saying that their passports were stamped on the border. and there were 3 ununiformed. There are a few women, men uniformed and non-uniformed, who came to with a fan, who came to arrest them. So this to mean as the process of stamping was taking place.
Yeah, so that means they're in Uganda legally.
Yeah, they're in Uganda legally, and again, as the same process was, it's my opinion that as the stamping was taking place, I think information was circulated all along Uganda, because I don't mind the same hour you're taking lunch and the same hour you're arrested. This information was leaked around that there is some people from Kenya in the name of activists who are coming to support Bobi Wine, and it's very humorous and very dangerous and risky for us, for someone to say that, please give me this final chance, I'm not coming back again. And maybe we don't want to go there deeper, but it's good to give fresh energy and young energy a place and a position, an advantage to take care of our country.
Yeah, and I was also just thinking about the aspect of the media attention that will come to this particular story, because this is not just being covered by Kenyan media, it's also being covered by the international media. And so we'll be expecting the international organizations to really weigh in and key in their voices on this issue. But I mean, you know, with Yoweri Museveni, he's a different ball game, absolutely, because for him, normally it's about what happens locally. He takes really, at least from the observations, takes really little notice of what the international media or the international organizations or the international people want. And so, I mean, these are 2 humans. They've got families who are depending on them. They've got families who relate with them. And so it's such a heartbreak, and I can only imagine the difficult position that they find themselves in this morning.
Yes, and that's a story you can find in page 4 of the Standard. And do you end there, Cynthia? I'm saying Rigathi to Uhuru, retire in peace and stay out of national politics. Okay, that's politics all through. And opposition all through. We end there.
All right. Thank you for watching this morning. This is Morning Live. We hope that you're up to date with what is making headlines on the pages this morning, as well as across the country. We'll be keeping tabs with some of these stories which we expect to be happening today, and then we'll update you in our subsequent bulletins.
Thank you for watching EBN, and we're here to transform your world. JK is my name, Jeffrey Kimayosomba. We wish you all the best in our subsequent bulletins and programs.